Friends, I want you to do something for me right now. Before I say another word, I want you to think about something you've been holding on to. Could be a person, could be a dream that didn't work out the way you planned, could be a version of yourself that you used to be. Could be anger at someone who hurt you so deeply that their name still makes your chest tighten. Could be guilt about something you did or something you didn't do when you had the chance. I want you to think about that thing, that one thing, the thing you carry with you every single morning when you wake up. The thing that's sitting on your chest right now, even as you're listening to me. The thing that makes you stare at the ceiling at 2 in the morning, wondering, why can't I just let this go? You've been told to let it go, haven't you? People in your life, friends, family, therapists, self-help books, social media posts with pretty sunsets and cursive fonts. They've all told you the same thing. Just let it go. Move on. Release it. Forgive and forget. Stop holding on. And you've tried. God knows you've tried. You've journaled. You've meditated. You've cried. You've prayed. You've gone on runs and listened to podcasts and deleted their number and blocked them on Instagram and told yourself, this is it. Today is the day I let go. And then something happens. A song comes on the radio. You drive past that rant. You smell something that smells like them. You see someone who walks the way they walked. And it all comes crashing back. Every single bit of it. Like it never left, like letting go was just a lie you told yourself. And you feel ashamed. Because you think the fact that you can't let go means something is wrong with you. You think it means you're weak. You think it means you're broken. You think it means you'll never move forward. You think it means you're stuck forever. Friends, I'm here today to tell you something that nobody has told you. And I need you to hear this with every cell in your body. Letting go is not what you think it is. Letting go is not forgetting. Letting go is not forgetting. It didn't happen. Letting go is not waking up one morning and feeling nothing. Letting go is not the absence of pain. Letting go is not moving on as if the thing never mattered. Letting go is not betraying the memory of what you lost. Letting go is not weakness. And letting go, this is the part that changes everything. Letting go is not something you do once. Letting go is a practice. It is a daily, hourly, sometimes minute by minute act of radical courage. It is one of the most misunderstood concepts in all of human psychology and human spirituality. And because we misunderstand it, we fail at it. And because we fail at it, we punish ourselves. And because we punish ourselves, we hold on even tighter. And the cycle continues. Today, we are going to break that cycle. Together, I'm going to take you on a journey. I'm going to show you what letting go actually is. I'm going to show you why you've been failing at it and why that failure is not your fault. I'm going to introduce you to real people. People whose stories will shatter you and rebuild you at the same time. And by the time we are done today, I believe with everything in me that you will walk out of here different. Not fixed, not healed, but different. Armed with a truth that you can actually use. A truth that will change the way you carry everything you've ever been through. Are you with me? Good. Let's go. Let me tell you about a woman named Maria. Maria was 43 years old. She was a school teacher in a small town in Ohio. She had 2 kids, a modest house, and a husband she had been married to for 17 years. And one Tuesday morning, her husband came downstairs with a cup of coffee, sat across from her at the kitchen table, and told her he was leaving. Not for someone else, he said. He just wasn't happy. He hadn't been happy for a long time. He left that afternoon. Maria told me when I interviewed her 2 years after that morning that the worst part wasn't the leaving. The worst part was that she could feel him leaving for years. She could feel the distance growing. She could feel herself reaching and him pulling back. She could feel the slow erosion of something that used to be warm, but she told herself it was normal. She told herself every marriage goes through phases. She told herself to hold on because holding on felt like fighting for something. Holding on felt like loyalty. Holding on felt like love. Holding on felt love. And so she held on. Long after her instincts told her to let go. Long after the evidence was all around her. Long after the thing she was holding on to had already changed into something she didn't even want anymore. When he left, Maria went to what she described as a fog. She went to work. She went to work. She came home. She made dinner for her kids. She smiled at parent-teacher conferences. And at night, she sat in her bathroom. She told me this. She sat in her bathroom on the cold tile floor and she held a picture of our wedding day and she tried to figure out where it all went wrong. She replayed every moment, every fight, every silence, every dinner where they sat across from each other and had nothing to say. She was searching for the moment, the exact moment, the thing she could point to and say, "There, that's what I should have done differently." She did this for 8 months. 8 months of sitting on a cold bathroom floor, performing an autopsy on her life that had already moved on without her. And then one night, her 7-year-old daughter knocked on the bathroom door. Maria quickly wiped her face, put the picture away, opened the door, and her daughter looked up at her and said, "Mama, why do you always cry in there?" Maria said she had no answer. She just picked her daughter up, carried her to bed, tucked her in, and stood in the doorway of her daughter's bedroom, watching her fall asleep. And something happened in that moment. Not a revelation, she said. Not a lightning bolt. More like a quiet voice. A quiet voice that said, "The life you're trying to get back to is gone, but the life you're standing in right now is real, and she needs you here." Maria did not let go that night. She didn't just flip a switch and stop feeling the pain. The pain didn't disappear, the grief didn't vanish. The anger didn't evaporate. But something shifted. She made a decision, not to stop feeling, but to stop performing the autopsy. To stop going back to the scene of the accident every night, reopening the wound, pouring salt in it, and calling that love. She said to me, with a clarity in her eyes I will never forget, "I thought letting go meant I didn't love him anymore. I thought letting go meant he didn't matter. But what I finally understood is that letting go just meant I was choosing to live in the present instead of bleeding in the past." Choosing to live in the present instead of bleeding in the past. Friends, I want you to sit with that. Because here is what I think is happening to so many of us. We have confused two completely different things. We have confused holding on to love with holding on to pain. We have confused loyalty with self-destruction. We have confused grief with devotion. We have confused the inability to let go with the depth of our feeling. But you can love someone deeply and still let go. You can honor a loss and still move forward. You can carry the memory of something beautiful without being buried by the weight of its absence. These things are not contradictions. They are the full complicated truth of what it means to be human. Now I want to talk to you about something that took me years to understand. And I want to be honest with you because I'm not up here speaking to you from some elevated position of having figured it all out. I'm speaking to you as someone who knows what it feels like to hold on to the wrong things for too long. To hold on to them because letting go felt like losing. And nobody wants to lose. I grew up in a household where weakness was not allowed. I don't mean that in the dramatic movie way. I mean it in the quiet, everyday way that shapes a child without them even knowing. My father was a good man. He worked hard. He provided for us. But he came from a generation and a culture where you didn't talk about what hurt you. You buried it. You kept moving. You didn't cry. Crying was weakness. Admitting that something broke you, that was weakness. And weakness in our house was the worst thing you could be. So I learned from a very young age that holding on was strength. That gritting your teeth was strength. That going back to the job that was killing your spirit every single day, that was strength. That staying in the relationship where you felt invisible, that was commitment. That carrying your anger like a shield, so nothing and no one could ever get close enough to hurt you again. That was protection. I held on to all of it. I held on to the bitterness from things that happened to me as a kid. I held on to the anger at people who I felt had wronged me. I held on to a version of success that wasn't even my own definition. It was my father's definition, my culture's definition, the world's definition. I held on to fear, disguised as caution. I held on to old stories about who I was and what I was capable of. Stories that were written about me by people who didn't know me, or worse, by younger versions of myself who were operating in survival mode. I held on to all of it for years. And I called it strength. And what I didn't realize, what it took me far too long to see, is that I was confusing the weight with the muscle. I thought carrying heavy things made me strong. But there's a difference between lifting weights and being crushed by them. There's a difference between bearing a burden because you have to and bearing a burden long after you've been given permission to set it down. I was crushed and I called it strong. Let me give you a different image because I believe in the power of images to change the way we think. Imagine you're on a long journey, a very long journey on foot across difficult terrain, and at the beginning of the journey, someone gives you a backpack. And inside that backpack, there are rocks. Now, at the start of the journey, some of those rocks are necessary. Some of them are tools. Some of them are maps. Some of them are sources of warmth and nutrition. You need them to survive the early part of the journey. So you carry them gratefully. But as the journey goes on, some of those rocks change. The terrain changes, and what was useful in the mountains becomes dead weight in the valley. But you've been carrying these rocks for so long that you've forgotten to check. You've just been walking, head down, one foot in front of the other, getting slower and slower without understanding why. Getting more exhausted, more defeated, more convinced that you must just be weak because this journey is so hard and everyone else seems to be moving faster. And then someone, a stranger on the side of the road, says, "Hey, stop for a second. Let me look at what you're carrying." And they open your backpack and they pull out rock after rock after rock. Old anger, old grief, old shame, old failures you've never forgiven yourself for, old identities that used to fit but don't anymore, old dreams you haven't buried properly, old loves you haven't mourned fully, old wounds you've covered up but never cleaned. They hold them up and say, "These are heavy. Do you still need all of these?" And here's the thing that breaks my heart and sets me on fire at the same time. Your answer for many of you will be yes. Because you've been carrying these rocks for so long that the weight has become familiar. And familiar feels safe. Even when it's destroying you, even when it's slowing you down, even when it's the very thing standing between you and the life you say you want. The weight has become your identity, and letting go of the weight feels like letting go of yourself. This is the deepest truth about why letting go is so hard. It's not because we're weak. It's not because we're weak. It's not because we're broken. It's because somewhere along the way, the thing we are holding became part of how we understand who we are. Think about the person who went through a devastating divorce and has been telling the story of that divorce for 15 years. For 15. Every new person they meet, every new relationship they try to start, every conversation at the dinner table circles back to that divorce. The way they were wronged, the way they were betrayed, the way they were left. And if you gently, lovingly suggested to them that maybe it's time to tell a different story, they would look at you like you'd suggested they cut off their arm. Because that story is not just something that happened to them, that story is them. At least that's what they believe. Or think about the person who failed spectacularly at something 10 years ago, a business that went under, a relationship that burned down, an opportunity they blew. And they have replayed that failure so many times that it has become the primary lens through which they see everything. I'm not good with money. I'm not good with relationships. I always mess things up when it matters most. They don't even see these as stories anymore. They see them as facts, as fundamental truths about who they are. The failure didn't just happen to them. The failure became the story they tell about themselves. And the story they tell about themselves determines the life they allow themselves to live. This is why letting go is not what you think. Because what you're really letting go of, the deeper thing, the scarier thing, is not just the event, not just the person, not just the loss. You're letting go of a story. And stories, especially stories we've been telling for years, are comfortable. They are predictable. They are known. And the unknown, even when it's better, is terrifying. Let me tell you about a man named James. James was a boxer, not a famous one, not a movie poster one, a real one. A kid from a rough neighborhood in Chicago who fell in love with the sport at 14 because it was the one place in his life where he felt like he had control over something. In the ring, it was just him and the other person. Father? No absent father. No struggling mother. No streets that wanted to swallow him. Just him and his hands and everything he'd been through converted into something purposeful. James trained for years. He was good. Really good. And at 22, he got his shot. A regional title fight. Everything he'd worked for. Every early morning, every bloody nose, every time he got knocked down and got back up, it was all pointing to this one night. He lost. By decision. Controversial decision, a lot of people said. But a loss is a loss. James told me that losing that fight was not the hardest part. The hardest part was what the loss became in his mind. He replayed that fight, literally replayed it on video, for months. He analyzed every round. He had people in his ear, trainers and managers, telling him what he did wrong, what he should have done differently, where he failed. And all of that feedback, which was meant to help him grow, instead got twisted up with his grief and his shame and became a verdict. Not about his performance, about him. He started to believe he wasn't a champion. Not that he hadn't won yet, that he wasn't one. That there was something fundamentally missing in him, something a real champion would have, something he didn't have. He stopped training seriously. He took smaller fights. He sleepwalked through his mid-20s, telling anyone who asked that he was still in the game, but operating from a place of deep, quiet defeat. Quiet defeat. He was holding on to the identity of a failed fighter. Not a fighter who failed once, a failed fighter. Do you feel the difference? Because that difference is everything. When James was 28, his coach, an old man named Robert, who'd been in the game for 40 years, sat him down and said something to him that James says changed his life. Robert said, James, that fight 2 years ago, it happened. It happened and it was real and it hurt. But every single day that you let that fight define you is another day you're choosing to lose again. You've been losing to that fight every day for 2 years. You don't have to do that anymore. James said he went home that night and cried in a way he hadn't let himself cry since he was a child. He didn't cry about the fight. He cried about the years, the lost years, the fights he could have been having, the growth he could have been doing, the person he could have been becoming. He mourned what he'd let go of, which was himself. And then he said, something lifted. Not all the way, but enough. He went back to training the next morning. He was 28 years old, which in boxing is not young, but he came back with something he didn't have at 22. At 22, he had talent and anger and hunger. At 28, he had something more powerful than any of those things. He had the wisdom of a man who had sat in the darkness and chosen to come back to the light. He had the resilience of a man who knew exactly how it felt to be defeated, and who knew that defeat was not the end of the story unless he decided it was. James fought for 4 more years. He won a regional title at 30. He never made it to the world stage. But he told me, with a peace in his voice that was more powerful than any trophy, I became the fighter I always could have been, just 4 years later than I planned. And I'm not angry about the 4 years anymore, because those 4 years taught me who I really was. The loss taught me who I really was. I just had to stop running from it, stop hiding behind it, and let it teach me. Let it teach you. Friends, this is the refrain. This is the fundamental shift in how you understand letting go. And I want you to feel this, not just think it. We are taught by our culture, by our conditioning, by our own survival instincts, that pain is something to be escaped, something to be gotten rid of, something to be moved away from as fast as possible. And so when we talk about letting go, we think of it as an escape. I need to let this go so I can stop feeling this pain. As if letting go is a door out of the pain. But that's not what letting go is. Letting go is not the door out. Letting go is the decision to stop fighting the pain that is already in the room with you. It's the decision to stop pretending the pain isn't there. Or the decision to stop letting the pain run the whole show. It's the recognition that the pain is real, the pain is valid. The pain has something to teach you, and the pain is not the final chapter of your story. Letting go is not, this didn't hurt me. Letting go is, this hurt me and I'm still here, and I'm choosing what happens next. There's a concept in Japanese culture called wabi-sabi. It's the philosophy of finding beauty in imperfection, in incompleteness, in the things that are broken, worn, faded, and impermanent. The most famous expression of this philosophy is kintsugi, the art of repairing broken pottery with gold. When a piece of pottery breaks, instead of throwing it away or hiding the damage, they repair it with gold lacquer. They make the cracks visible. They make the cracks beautiful. They turn the evidence of breakage into the most precious part of the object. The bowl that has been broken and repaired with gold is not a lesser bowl. It is a richer bowl. It is a richer bowl. A more interesting bowl, a bowl with story, a bowl that has been tested and survived and carries the evidence of its own resilience in the most visible, most beautiful way possible. It was made by someone who didn't yet know what they were really capable of, didn't yet know what they really valued, didn't yet know what the world really needed from them, didn't yet know who they would become through the fires that were waiting for them. The fact that your plan didn't work out is not a verdict on your worth. It might be the most profound mercy the universe has ever shown you. I believe I have to believe, because I have lived it, that some of the best things that ever happened in my life came wrapped in the packaging of the worst things I ever experienced. The relationship that ended and left me desolate created the space for a love I couldn't have imagined. The career path I was forced off of led me to a calling that actually fit who I am. The failure that humiliated me publicly cracked me open in a way that allowed something real and true to finally come out. I'm not saying your pain was a gift. I'm not being the cavalier with your suffering. What I'm saying is that your pain, as real and as valid as it is, might not be the end of the sentence. It might be a comma. It might be the part of the story that looks like ending but turns out to be the middle. But you will only find out if you let go of the plan that didn't work out and become curious about what's next. Curiosity. Let's talk about that word for a moment, because I want to propose it to you as a replacement for something else. Something that might be sitting in your chest right now or has sat there in the past. That something is resentment. Resentment is one of the heaviest rocks in the backpack. It is also, I believe, the most misunderstood, because resentment feels active. It feels powerful. It feels like you are doing something with your anger. It feels like justice. It feels like you are honoring the wrong that was done to you by refusing to forgive it, refusing to release it, holding the person who hurt you accountable in the court that exists inside your own mind. But here is the truth about resentment, and I want you to feel this all the way to your bones. Resentment is a fire that burns down your own house to keep someone else cold. The person you resent, in most cases, they have moved on. They are living their life. They may not even remember. They may not even know the full extent of what they did to you. They may not care. And while you are sitting in the ruins of your own burned down house, tending the fire of your resentment, they are somewhere out there living. This is not justice. This is not power. This is not accountability. This is you paying the price for someone else's crime every single day with your precious time and your precious energy and your precious life. I am not asking you to excuse what they did. I am not asking you to pretend it didn't happen. I am not asking you to make yourself vulnerable to them again. I am not asking you to call them up and say, hey, no hard feelings. Forgiveness is not a phone call. Forgiveness is not reconciliation. Forgiveness is not condoning. Forgiveness, real forgiveness, the kind that actually works, is a private act of self-liberation. It is the decision to stop letting someone who is not in the room run your life. It is the decision to take back the power you handed to someone when they hurt you. It is the moment you stop being their victim. Not because what they did was okay, but because your life is worth more than the story of what they did. There's a man I know, I'll call him David, who spent 11 years in a legal battle with his former business partner. His partner had cheated him. Genuinely, provably, significantly cheated him. David had been wronged. There was no ambiguity about that. And David was going to make sure that partner paid. Every year, hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees. Every year, the majority of his mental and emotional energy consumed by depositions and appeals and strategies and the burning, righteous desire to win. 11 years.